Hi everyone and welcome to another mostly pointless video. I'm sure it has a theme, but at this point putting things together I don't know what that is yet. I hope everyone who took part in the Global Game Jam had fun and got something out of it. Once again I'm afraid to say I gave it a miss. I had familial obligations and I think it's important to make sure your children punch each other properly. Infer from that what you will, I won't expand on it. This week I really just spent most of my time tidying things up. Both digitally and in the office. That can be the theme, tidying up. I decided to make a video again this week specifically for the purposes of making a video. I haven't really settled into a groove about how I make videos yet, so doing a few more might help solidify things. I like the little post-it notes I put on after I put the video together, but that's about as far as I've got. Anyway, the video playing here is a sped up recording of me just putting stuff in places. Mostly some consoles and box things that will come into play in the weeks to come. And yes, you found me out, I don't talk live over this. I instead watch the video back section by section and just record my thoughts at the time. It's neither highly produced or 100% authentic spontaneity. It is authentically all I can be bothered to do though, so you get that much. Creating all these bits and bobs is long overdue, but up until now either other game functionalities seemed to be more pressing, or I had to keep the game in working condition so I couldn't mess about with things too much. I have to do neither of those things now, so I can hopefully sit here and show off things in their incomplete ingloriousness, as it should be. The inner conflict in the art is quite, I'll say obnoxious. Mostly I want to make nice art things for, with a lot more detail. But I have to stop myself and focus on keeping the art style simple and nicely readable at a very small size because it's fairly tiny on screen. There's always a desire to add loads of cool stuff, but since you'll never see it, that would be pointless and stupid, and I'm saving all my pointless stupidity for the coding. I mean that as well. Here's some baby code. It's the first part of a piece of code that mostly does nothing. First iterations of code are nice to show off because everything just gets left public instead of serialized, and you leave empty functions around just in case. Actually, just after recording this bit, I remember I changed this all to be an inherited class so it can handle consoles and the box things that are kind of like consoles. Worth pointing out to non-coders that this tiny simple piece of code handles the actual console, not what the console does, as in control the ship or anything. The thing that the console controls is what the console does, and that thing has its own code. Hope that makes sense. This code really just handles the monitor changing to different textures and gives a little feedback when the character asks what type of console this is. That might seem a little abstract to more practical coders, but I don't mind an extra level of complexity since it gives me an extra level of flexibility as well. That's important since my specification, which I never wrote down, has some optional avenues to explore. I don't write many things down to be honest these days, so I'm constantly amazed at the volume of paperwork that stacks up in the office. As I mentioned earlier, I was tidying up my office a little this week, and despite doing all the banking and shopping digitally, a lot of what was thrown out was just paper that had been sent to me via councils or banks or random third-party companies. And also more of Chantel's notebooks, since she made an almost infinite quantity of notes and they ended up all over the room as they got filled up and probably just handed to her minions. To be fair, back in my earlier design days I wrote huge DTDs that were hundreds of pages long. Then I learned that nobody in the team would ever read those, so I broke them down into a series of smaller documents that were less daunting and gave the appropriate ones to the appropriate people. I still do DTDs for other people occasionally, but for my own stuff I mostly just store it in my head. I'm not claiming I have a great singular vision for what I want to do with space-time. Quite the opposite, deliberately in this game. But I never had that for any other game either. I actually keep several versions in my head and make sure they all mesh together as needed. Design only gets written down when I need to pass the data to someone else, such as probability tables or a specific step-by-step guide on a complex game mechanic. In total, I only found 4 notes on my desk, and even then, one was a reminder that Ben printed out for everyone back when we made Dead Exit. I made a font that included all the symbols, and this note is a reminder of what they were on the keyboard. Next note is a question. I sometimes leave myself look and feel questions on notes for me to find months later when I might be able to answer them. Trello works just as well. Then we have a doodle of a thing I did for Ben to make in 3D Coat. It's the little display panel in the front end. And occasionally I even leave coded shorthand scribbles for entire game designs. If I ever manage to get the Living Dungeon out on PS4, this might become relevant again. Despite tidying, my office is still mostly just mess. You can visit, I don't mind, but the only part of the room worth seeing right now is the stupidly large collection of X-Wing ships we have. Even that's starting to get messy thanks to 2nd edition. Anyway, I was talking about consoles, I think. Yes, I thought about making a push button a type of console as well, even though that's a little different. But then I remembered I'd already written an entire switch system. The switch system can turn on and off objects or trigger animations. It's got loads of settings actually. You have switches that toggle, timed switches, locking switches, switches that turn on a bunch of things, switches that I can't remember what the difference between the last one and this one is, but I can't be bothered to check, cyclic switches, multiple switches for one input, and even switches that can reset switches. They can also be triggered by action or collision or probably Peppermint Butler. Anyway, these boxes are for weapons to plug into. This is the airlock. Here is the storage bin. The fire extinguisher repair tool should be here, but I haven't made it yet or done any of the internal damage code. This is supposed to be console number 4. This is where you stuff your drone. So basically what I'm saying is that all of this stuff does absolutely nothing right now, so there's a lot of work still to do. Bye for now.